Hi, Sam. Thank you very much for spending some time with us today. I was wondering if you could start just by telling us how you found the core training at the 1010 Academy.
It was good. Yeah, it's really interesting. And it's definitely good, I think. Well, especially for me, because I kind of knew I wanted to get a job in tech. And I kind of had a few ideas about areas I wanted to go into, but I wasn't that sure. So it was a pretty good overview of like the various kind of areas of in tech and like what areas there are and what jobs are out there. It's intense, but it's really rewarding and really good. And it's like a lot in 8 weeks, but you get a lot from it.
And what were you up to when you were thinking about applying to the academy? Did you go to uni? Were you working elsewhere? What was going on in your life?
I'd actually been out of uni for about, I think, 2 years at that point, or like a year and a half. I was actually working in a brewery, which was okay, but I think like leading up to that, the last 6 months of like working there, I was kind of like, I want a job in something tech related because I did like a physics degree at uni. Um, and then I think when I was in third year, it was kind of when COVID hit, so like the job market wasn't great. So I think kind of I was working there and I was kind of applying around and being like, I want to do something a bit more related to my degree. Saw 1010. I was like, this sounds great. Applied, yeah, went well really. So yeah, it was all good.
And how do you think you've dealt with moving from the training onto your client work? I know it's a lot of information, as you said, but how has it been moving into the actual work and client project side of things?
I felt like the transition was quite smooth, to be honest. It didn't really. I mean, I think I'm not sure about now. I think because I kind of went for like a data role. It was kind of, I guess, maybe like a tiny bit kind of tangential from what you cover in core training. But I did additional training on like a data with one of the trainers. I can't remember exactly what it was afterwards. So I think the transition was quite smooth, to be honest. It wasn't too hard. And I think because of the nature of the client, there was quite a long kind of waiting period to start. So there was kind of like, oh, you got the job, and then there was like a few months wait. So I think in that time, it was like a great time for me to kind of upskill and catch up on any kind of relevant skills. So I think the combination of that and my core training, it was when I started, it was fine. Yeah, it was good. No issues really.
So you're currently on a client in the public sector. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that role means and some of the other teams that you work with?
So I've joined a kind of a data science and software engineering group. I currently work as like a data analyst, and I'm kind of more junior in the team, obviously. Um, yeah, it's good. It's really interesting. I mean, I think I kind of I'd done a tiny bit of data stuff before. I'd done like a machine learning course, and I'd done a bit of data related training. In like, the main office in London, there's like a few thousand people. There's lots of like ex-police force, ex-civil servants, that kind of stuff. In my group, it's called like NDEC, and within NDEC, there's like 6 teams: data engineers, data scientists, software engineers. In my team, I think there's like 13 people now. We're kind of split between London and Bristol, and there's a few in another city I can't quite remember.
And could you tell us a little bit more about the tools or the processes, frameworks, what have you, the things you've really been getting your teeth stuck into?
Sure. So I guess firstly, we're kind of working at like an agile kind of methodology. That's not really a tool or a frame. I guess it's kind of a framework. So we kind of have regular meetings, do sprints, do retrospectives, that kind of stuff. A lot of what I do is kind of based in Python, which is like a programming language, to kind of build kind of machine learning models, data analysis, data visualization. So there's kind of libraries within Python called pandas, which is for like manipulation of data into tables. What else is there? There's like scikit-learn and Keras, which is like a kind of machine learning libraries. On top of that, also we use a lot of it's called Neo4j. It's like a graph visualization technology. That was new to me. That didn't get covered. Really interesting, really cool. Literally kind of plot out data as graphs and manipulate it. What else do we do? Oh, also there's a lot of SQL stuff from working with databases.
And thinking back on the training that you went through, again, I appreciate there was a lot. Thinking back on it, was there anything that really sticks in your mind as being particularly useful when you got to your client placement? Could be from the core training or the specialist. Anything that really resonated with you?
I think probably the kind of most useful areas. I think the kind of part on databases and SQL. was definitely useful because I still use SQL now. So that was quite useful, having an understanding of how databases work. And also for the kind of development section, although you kind of learn Java in core training, there's a lot of similarities between Java and Python. And even though they're different languages, there's kind of, similarities like data structures, like loops, logic statements, which I think was really helpful. So yeah, although differences, there's definitely similarities that I picked up between them. That was good.
Now, I know a lot of tech roles have a great variety of work. You might not always know what you're working on next week when you're finishing up your tasks, but could you give us an insight into an average day or maybe even an average week on your placement?
Sure, yeah. I could try and give like I guess, a brief rundown of a week. I think I mentioned earlier that we kind of work in like a agile methodology. So we normally have a few meetings each week, kind of brief stand-ups in the morning, maybe one earlier in the week to kind of discuss your goals for the week, what you're going to work on. Later on in the week, you might have one we discuss kind of blockers that you're having, issues, how work's going. And normally on a Friday, depending on the week, you kind of, it might be a retrospective, it might be like a walk the board. So that's another thing. Normally, you go weekly. We have a Jira board, which is how you kind of assign workflows. So you kind of go on that, pick up a task, work through it. You kind of leave comments into subtasks as you work through it. I think as I'm more junior, typically in a working week, I will have like smaller tasks that I work on my own that are maybe like more manageable for me. And then kind of larger tasks, I'll work with the kind of more senior data scientists and kind of help them with their work.
Now, you've been with your client since March 2024. How has your role and your responsibilities changed since then?
I think as I've kind of gone throughout my role, I think I've kind of getting slightly more like important pieces of work and kind of taking on some more responsibility, which I think is quite normal because I think I would like to progress to like a full-on data scientist role, which you're more involved with kind of building like machine learning models, using stuff like Hugging Face. So I think kind of as I'm going on, I'm kind of getting larger bits of work that are more important, which I really enjoy. I think it's like a good way of learning as well, because when you started, you kind of take on smaller pieces of work that aren't as complex, and you kind of like your hands held a bit through them. As you get a bit more experience, you get a bit more like autonomy to work on stuff on your own, which I quite enjoy.
And how has your client supported your professional development?
Yeah, they're really supportive. I think the first few months I was maybe just like wanted to work and didn't want to like ask for too much training. And then one of the first kind of reviews I had with my line manager, she was like, "Oh, the work's really good, but you're more than welcome to ask for training. You're junior, so feel free to like take time out of your day." And since then, I've now kind of started doing like daily training. So I think at the moment, my mentor has me doing like about 3 to 3.5 hours of training a week. So kind of like half an hour a day. And on Fridays, I normally do an hour and a half, which is really good. So they're really supportive of that, which is good. So they're like, you can work on your work and then also train relevant skills, whether that be SQL, Python courses, or I don't know, kind of relevant stuff to that, which I think is really good. So they're like, yeah, it's good that you can take lots of time to do training to kind of, improve on your own professional skills.
I see. And do you feel that's helping you put what you learn into practice a little bit better, using it every day?
Yeah. Which is really good because you can literally, because you're learning like new technologies, new skills. There's like a technical component to it. So you're training regularly, like in small doses, and applying it to work. So it makes learning like, and it makes you feel like what you're like learning is a lot more useful as well because you're kind of applying it directly after learning it.
That's terrific. And what support have you received from 1010 in that time?
Yeah, the support's been great. Various people kind of regularly check in, ask how I'm doing, which is nice. If I've ever got any questions, whether it's technical related or just like, I don't know, anything like holiday or like whatever, people always get back quickly. They're really helpful. When I was inquiring about booking exams for like AWS tests, they're really helpful. So yeah, they're really great. Reply quickly. Can't really ask for much more.
That's brilliant. And there's just one question that we love to end with every time I do one of these interviews, which is what do you have to say for people who are considering applying to the 1010 Academy?
I would definitely recommend it. It's really helpful. They open you up to a world of work. Everyone's really helpful. You learn loads. It's definitely a great opportunity. And especially, I think one thing that I thought was really good about 1010 was that I had a degree, so I was like, oh, it'd be quite easy for me to get a job. And you kind of start applying for these jobs that are like entry level, and they'd be like, oh, you need to have 3 years experience doing this, this, and that. And it's like it's not really entry level at that point. Whereas this was like, come join us. Doesn't matter what you have, as long as you're keen to learn and interested, we'll train you up. And I like that kind of ideology. I'm a big fan of that.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much for your time today, Sam. Thanks for taking us behind the scenes a little bit, telling us about your role, your client placement, and ultimately, hopefully, helping more people apply to the 1010 Academy.
No worries, all good.